a coffin.
Two friends in a coffin, two friends in a coffin. We need
We're
a theme
so
song.
happy that you're here to listen to us, and we're here to tell you a story.
Oh, we tell stories on the show?
Well, real stories, I guess.
Oh, so we're not telling fake stories?
No, I didn't make any of my stuff up.
God damn it. I came with a fake story today.
That would actually be really fun if one of us were a writer, but I am not.
Ooh, one of these days we should have a fake story, and like the audience has to guess which one is real and which one is fake.
Oh yeah, like maybe like a Halloween special. We do like one a week or something, and
Oh my
one
gosh.
of them is fake, and you need to figure out which one it is.
It'll be like the War of the Worlds.
That would be.
This is a very special episode, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Because we have our friend and old coworker, Vicky!
Vicky!
Can I speak?
You can speak!
We told you couldn't speak for how long,
Yeah.
and now you can speak.
She was told, don't speak until spoken to.
Yes. I'm here with my cup of tea. I'm ready to go.
You got your cup of tea, yeah?
Got my cup of tea. Yeah, I had to get some caffeine pumping through my blood.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, we know you. By the way, we're all like mortuary workers at one point.
Yes.
So like we all work together, but tell us about you.
I would consider myself a very boring individual. I am illness and accident prone, and
that is true.
No, I moved here in 2010 from England. I don't know if you could tell, but
couldn't tell.
Yeah, I've been here for 12 years, and I have now been in, I guess, the death business, not necessarily just mortuary, but the death industry for 3 years.
Ooh,
I think.
I like how you put that. Death industry.
Yes. Well, I've kind of bounced around. I'm currently working in a morgue, so but used to do removals with you guys. That's how we met.
Yeah, Vicky and I actually started doing removals roughly the same time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was there like 2 weeks before you showed up, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think I was 3 weeks after.
I think so. But you were also doing mortuary stuff before we were, just in general.
It's true.
I remember the first time I met Vicky, I didn't know that she was from England, and I just go, hello, to people all the time. And so I met her the first time, I was like, hello, and she said it back, and I was like, oh, that's cool. She said it back to me. That's fun. And then when I had a real conversation with her, I was quite embarrassed, because I was like, oh, no, she thought I was making fun of her, but I've never even spoke to her. I didn't know.
That's just about everyone I meet. And if they're not embarrassed of themselves, they probably should be.
Well, it's actually quite ironic that Vicky, you're from England, because our episode today and today's story takes place in North London.
Oh.
How far is that from where you grew up?
It's not very far. I'm from Cambridge, so if you want to hop on a train, it's about an hour's train ride.
The only thing I know about Cambridge is the university.
Yeah, yep. There's many universities. It's kind of a melting pot of, foreign students, and great place to grow up.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, North London, though, specifically, we're going to a place called Muswell Hill.
Oh,
you know it?
I've not heard of it. No.
Oh, I'm just assuming that you know every single place that we're going to talk about.
You know what? I never actually went to London very much. It was rare.
So you didn't have tea with the Queen?
I didn't. One day.
Someday
Before she's dead.
You've got like 6 months.
I know.
Did you ever go to the Globe Theatre?
I have seen the Globe Theatre, but I've never been to it.
I went there. I didn't get to see a show, but I've been there.
But I believe the Globe Theatre that's standing now is a remake.
It is. The original burned down, and I think it was like a block away where they rebuilt it.
Yes. So I remember not knowing that at the time and being disappointed that it wasn't like the original.
Mm-hmm.
It was still cool, but
The fella that we're going to talk about actually really liked Shakespeare too. He also was a pretentious prick. And I don't want to generalize people who like Shakespeare, but there is a certain stereotype about people that like Shakespeare, right?
I can be pretentious. I'll accept it.
And yet, I think I read something about Shakespeare. Like there was a quote, like I read on somebody's Facebook feed that like everyone thinks that Shakespeare is this highbrow, like very like, ooh, it's pretentious, and yet like it's nothing more than like a series of body jokes that gets worse and worse and more and more cross-dressing as the play goes on.
The amount of penis jokes that man wrote. Oh, he's so fancy. That means this, and you're like, that was a penis joke. You got that, right?
See, I'm not intelligent enough to recognize the penis joke because of all the language. Maybe I would have appreciated Shakespeare more had I known.
This fellow would have appreciated a penis joke because he was quite fond of the penis.
Oh.
Exactly. Yes. So
of his own penis, like most men are, or of other people's penis?
Yeah.
All of the above.
All of the above.
Let's go back. We are going back to February of 1983. It's specifically 8th of February. It's February. It's a little bit snowy. It's pretty cold. So there's a plumbing company called Dino Rad. Actually, it's Dino Rod. And
love it.
Oh, more penis jokes.
Say dinosaur penis joke. Great.
Yeah.
It's a stegosaurus. But there's a young fella who's working on the drains, and his name is Michael Catron. And he goes to 23 Cranley Gardens, and because the residents are basically complaining that their toilets aren't working and they can't get any water and things like that. So
I know where this is going.
Well, he goes down and they open it, and he finds that there's this like whitish, fleshy substance that's blocking the pipes, and it's something he's never seen before, and it's literally blocking the pipes. And so he's like, I don't know what this is. And so he calls his boss, and the boss is like, all right, I'm going to come down there tomorrow and we're going to take a look at it.
Surely it was like stinky.
I guess, but all I think his comment was, well, it don't look like shit to me.
You sound like a southerner.
Isn't London in southern England?
I mean, technically it's considered East Anglia, if you want to go there, but
East Anglia, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so I sound like a Liverpoolian?
I thought you meant you sound like you're from like the South in the U.S.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Well,
you sound like a hick.
Well, there may be some
from London.
There may be some attempts at accents here, just because Carly knows I do that all the time. But it's not you. I'm not trying to impress you personally. Okay.
Okay.
He's trying to offend you.
Yeah. I'm easily offended.
So back to the pipes. Well, the guy who lives on the bottom floor with his girlfriend, well, he comes out and he hears a commotion, and they hear like somebody knocking around metal. And so he goes out, and there's the guy from upstairs, just kind of hanging about the drain. And he's like, what the hell is going on? And so he clearly he's not from England, but he's so the other guy's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just taking a pee. And he's a little suspicious, but the drains aren't working, so I guess you have to go out and take a pee outside. So he doesn't think they're suspicious, but they let it go. And so the next day, the drain people come, and he tells them about this, and they're like, they look and they see that some of the substance is gone, like they can't see it anymore, and they're like, it's gone. What's going on? And so he goes in, and there's a little bit in there, and so he pulls some of this stuff out, and it looks like some flesh and a knuckle bone.
Oh.
And so they're like, we're calling the police. And so, the police come and they take it. Apparently they go back to the lab, and I've never actually seen in the US, I've never actually seen anything come back this quickly. But apparently within an hour, they know it's human. No idea. It's 1983. Have no idea what's happening, but they're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? So they come back and they decide they're going to talk to the guy upstairs. And so they wait because the people downstairs are like, he usually comes home at 5. And so they wait. And so pretty soon this, this older fella, he's just kind of looks like a regular everyday, just nice guy, comes rolling down the street, and he's like, hello. And they're like, hello. And they're like, we'd like to speak to you. And he's like, well, is it in the habit of the police to be asking about people's drains? And they're like, well, let's go upstairs. So they go upstairs, and he's living on the 3rd floor. It's this garret type place that has they go in and instantly there's the smell of rotting flesh up there. Ugh. And they're like, okay. And there's they've found pieces of a body in the drains, and the guy is like, oh my gosh, that's so terrible.
Did that get there?
Yeah. Oh,
I've been framed.
And suddenly they're like, cut the crap. Where's the fucking body? And didn't actually say the fucking, but he.
I mean, they may have.
Probably thought it.
He thought he was thinking it. Finally, okay, the body's in the wardrobe. So he basically says, it's a long story. It goes back a long time. I'll tell you everything. I want to get it off my chest, but not here at the police station. And while they're on the ride, they ask him, well, how many people have you killed? And he's like, 15 or 16.
Whoa.
Yeah. So they got more than they bargained for. The guy that they'd arrested, it turns out, was a guy in his early 30s named Dennis Nilsen.
Oh, okay. I've heard the name.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. What about you, Carly?
Well, when you said Dennis, I just went to BTK.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fucking Dennis.
But I feel like where it's going, I don't remember, but I feel like now that we've gone this far, I feel like I do know it, but I don't know much.
For some reason, when you say his name, an image of a black and white, I don't know, I guess it would be a mugshot of him flashes in my head. Does he have black hair, kind of short black hair? He's got glasses. He looks like a very average white dude, to be honest.
Yes, that is Dennis Nilsen.
Okay, sweet.
Well, Dennis Nilsen today he is known as one of the most prolific serial killers in the UK history. He is listed as number 3.
Wow. Ooh.
And he also has the distinction of being basically the Jeffrey Dahmer of the UK.
Oh,
he kind of looks like him.
Oh, you've seen him?
Yeah, I just looked him up as Vicky was describing the picture.
Now I want to look it up. I want to see how accurate I am.
It definitely sounds like what the description.
He's saggy.
He's saggy?
His whole face kind of looks saggy.
Are you looking at him from his arrest or from the 1990s?
It might be the 1990s. I just Googled images.
Oh, that's exactly who I was thinking in my head.
I mean, you wouldn't have remembered him actually happening.
I was not alive. I was minus.
You were minus at that time.
I cannot do that. I was negative at that time.
Negative for a lot of things, especially Dennis Nilsen.
Yep.
Well, they did some investigation. I mean, first of all, they didn't believe him because 15 bodies. I mean, at that time, he was one of the first serial killers. Besides, of course, Jack the Ripper, but that goes back to the 1890s, and so we're. And there's been folks since then, of course, but as far as it doesn't happen that much. That's a lot of people thought it was an American thing at that point.
Yeah.
Well, they start their investigation, and his confession, he confesses, and he goes on, and it's this detailed confession, and he's got very strong details. And so they start to realize, oh my God, this guy actually could be telling the truth. They basically go through the house. When they actually had initially gone in there, they didn't open the wardrobe. So they just, I guess, left him there with the rotting bodies in the closet.
Yeah.
But they went back, of course, and they basically found in the wardrobe were 2 plastic bags with the remains of one of the bags had dissected torsos, and the other one had a human skull, which was devoid of human flesh. Well, obviously, a human skull being devoid of human flesh would be really weird if it was devoid of cat flesh. He found another severed head, and then there was a torso with arms, but it had no hands. So then they found a tea chest in his living room that had human remains, and also in an upturned drawer in his bathroom. So he had at least 3 people in there.
His house had to have smelled so bad.
So bad. Like, you would imagine the whole apartment complex.
Yeah, that would have been obvious.
Yeah, I mean, we've all smelled that. And to this day, I cannot understand how it didn't just reek.
Mm-hmm.
But people who went into his house, they described it as smelling bad, but it was a musty odor. And I'm like, I've worked in funeral homes all over the country for like years and years and years, and I can tell you, musty is not the first smell that I say when I smell rotting flesh.
No.
It's like,
it sticks to you too. So like you smell like it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I don't get it. But there's 3 bodies, but who are they? Well, Dennis knew the identity of the last one, Stephen Sinclair, but he did not know the identity of the others.
So he didn't even, the guy who killed him didn't even know their names.
Nope, he didn't. I mean, basically, he started talking about the 15 people he killed, and he only knew one of them. He knew them by what he called, just they were kind of pet names. Like one of them he called the Blue-Eyed Scot. One of them he called Belfast Boy. Another one, a hitchhiker. One of them was the tourist. One of them was the skinhead. And then there was John the guardsman. So he knew them by like how he encountered them and what. But other than that, he didn't really. Which makes me think: did he take their belongings? Did he take their licenses? Like, what did they have on them? It's kind of like, okay, unlike other serial killers that do remember names, like that's part of their thing,
Yeah, because what did he do with the clothes then? Because if they weren't clothed, I mean, if they were cut up, I assume they weren't clothed.
Well, one of the he kept some of them. In fact, when he was coming home and the police stopped him, he had a bright blue scarf around his neck. That his new scarf that his coworkers had all commented on was taken from his last victim, and he's like, "Ooh, this is mine now."
Ugh,
son of a bitch.
Yeah, son of a bitch. But that's how I get my new clothing too.
Yeah.
And it saves money.
I mean, isn't that kind of the same as going to the DI?
I guess they've all been worn. I mean, it's not still warm from the body that I took them from, but
pretty close.
Yeah. They couldn't find like who these people were. So, when this investigation was problematic to begin with, because they had bodies, but they didn't know who they are. So, as opposed to they've got names, but they don't have bodies. So automatically it's on its side. It's all up topsy-turvy as to this investigation. Well, he had recently actually moved about a year ago from Melrose Ave. And when he was in Melrose Ave, that's where he killed the majority of his victims, 12 of them. And he basically killed them and, drag their bodies out. He had a garden, and he would drag their bodies out to the garden and then burn them in these huge bonfires in his backyard. Once again, cremating a body. How did nobody smell this?
Yeah.
Not just cremating a body, cremating a rotting body.
Yeah.
If my neighbor had a giant fire, because it's got to be a big fire to burn a body, I'd be concerned.
Also, I mean, like, he burned them down to the point where they were brittle and he could then break up the bones. So that takes hours and hours and
yes,
so it's not just like a fire, like, oh, I poured gasoline on it and 20 minutes later it's gone.
And I'll just tell people I was making s'mores.
Yeah.
He says he threw tires on the fire to mask the smell.
I mean, I don't know. That could have been effective.
How does
it
take
distracting?
I guess. And
burning rubbers.
I mean, what the hell is wrong with like people in North London? Like, no offense, but like, do they like not pay attention to what their neighbors are doing? Or are they like, we don't want to know?
You know what? I actually do think that is a possibility. Like, people in England, you keep yourself to yourself.
Really?
And mind your own business. So I could see that, I guess.
Have you found that's different from where you live now?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surrounded by Mormon neighbors. And the ones that aren't Mormon have oh God, what's the latest? Fuck Joe Biden. Let's go Brandon. Flags up, and they'll try and interact and stuff. And I don't want to. I'm not neighborly.
I'll walk my dog and everyone's like, oh, hi. I'm like, no, just let me walk.
Exactly.
Don't talk to me. Don't
molest my dog. So he had this, whole thing going on at the last street, and they went in. It was a cold, snowy day again. And they brought these new cadets from the police. They're like, you're all going to go dig up the backyard. And so they did. And they found that they were having a hard time digging through the frozen ground. But they started finding bone chips and teeth. And it wasn't like one of the documentaries I watched, the lady was saying, like, it wasn't just like, oh, we dig for 3 hours and found like, oh, there's a bone chip. They were every couple of minutes finding a new bone chip. So it's like this place was littered underneath. And he took some of the entrails and threw them over the fence.
Into the neighbor's yard.
Well, it's this weird thing in the backyard that looks like a bramble patch type, like wilderness. I can't.
Okay.
I don't know.
I
don't know. It's a city, so it's a weird, like, unkempt thing. I'm like, this does not look like an upscale middle class neighborhood. This looks like really low class. But you look at the houses, it's clearly a middle class neighborhood.
I mean, I do feel like unkempt is a good describer of the UK.
Well, in here, we think of unkempt as being, oh, you're from the country and you get 3 or 4 cars in your backyard, which means the more cars you have, the more likely you have of being elected mayor.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, this is how brazen this guy is.
And it's also like the smell of that. Like entrails just rotting in the sun. I assume there were some summer days.
His thought were that there were animals around that were going to eat all this stuff. I'm like, what kind of animals in the city are you thinking are going to come and eat entrails? Like, are you feeding the cats in the neighborhood?
The little rat-a-tats, maybe?
Yeah, badgers.
What?
Badgers.
What? Badgers in the city?
Yes. And English badgers are big and fat.
Really?
Yeah, I ran over one once.
Do they, like, go through people's trash?
What?
Well, are they like raccoons? Like, they'll pull over your trash cans and eat your trash?
I mean, I've never encountered that. I think usually they're just what do they eat? Like mice? What? I don't know.
I saw a video of a honey badger eating a snake.
Okay, well, I'm going to go with that.
Clearly,
Other critters.
London just got a little bit more metal.
I mean, London is disgusting.
poor London. We're hating on London.
Yeah.
I love you, London.
So these victims, they're still even more, they're having a hard time finding out who these people are, because now at this point, they've got these folks he didn't really know that long to begin with. He would basically meet them at bars, the local gay bars. He would meet them on the street. For the most part, these folks were very vulnerable individuals, folks down on their luck, homeless folks that were, substance abuse, yada, yada, yada. Where have we heard this before?
Yeah.
This sounds like the story of every killer we've talked about, particularly the gay ones.
Yes. Yeah, and it does sound familiar. As far as Jeffrey Dahmer you mentioned earlier, that's good. The gay bars and such.
Yep, he picked them up, but he in particular was not into it for sex. He did not seem to really be, and some of these individuals were actually straight. Some of them were sex workers who were straight, but were doing the whole pay for gay survival sex thing. He basically would lure them in, not with a promise of sex, but with the promise of, let's drink more and then come to my house. The bar's closing. I got a bunch of stuff to drink back home. He would lure them with the promise of food and a bed or music. I don't know about you, but who lures their people with music?
The Pied Piper?
Maybe. Maybe 5-year-old boys.
5-year-old boys.
Ice cream men?
Yeah.
I want a margarita truck. An ice cream margarita truck.
I think it'd sell so good.
Oh my gosh. Well, he would basically bring them home, and then he would strangle them with either a necktie or a ligature, whatever he had around. He didn't seem to go all the way strangling with him. So he would find that they were still alive. They were still breathing. So then he would take them and dunk their heads in the bathtub or the sink or a bucket and basically then drown them to death. Which that's what he says he did to the very first one. He brought him home. He strangled him with the necktie. And then he had a bucket of water that he dunked his head into.
Yikes.
Nope. Nothing tells me that that's not his first murder, because first murder, who thinks let's dunk their head in the water to kill them? That sounds intensely advanced for a serial, And
it sounds very sadistic, being like, I'm going to choke them and then I'm going to drown them.
Yeah.
Instead of just one or the other. It's like, I think it's very sadistic to bring them to death and then not, and then do it again.
Yeah.
Which I've actually I have read a lot, and I haven't really heard anyone talking about, are there other previous victims? Everyone seems to accept his word that his first victim was in 1978, which I'm like, okay, this sounds really advanced, but okay, it's his first. He would then basically take off their clothes and wash them, basically take them to the bath and wash them, and then dress them in new underwear and t-shirts. And then he would lay with them. Does that sound like somebody?
Yep.
And then he would basically keep them around for days, and he would put them in the closet when he went to work, or he would put them in the floorboards, and then he would bring them out every so often and sit them down and watch TV with them, and he would chat and have one-way conversations with them, and then he would caress them and say how beautiful you are. And it just really was very, I don't want to say tender, but maybe intimate is the term, which totally inappropriate intimacy, but it's not, in a lot of ways, very Dahmer-ish.
Was he necrophiliac?
I mean, he definitely was
Certainly
a
sounds
level of necrophilia. He did masturbate on their bodies. He claims he never actually penetrated, but I don't think
That's such a
penetrative.
lie.
That's
a
Such a lie? Why?
Because he had the opportunity, so why not?
have you tried to screw a corpse?
I can confidently say that I have never. But if you are
But that's like clearly
deviant
where you're
killing people.
But Vicky,
Yeah.
you've had the opportunity.
I've had many an opportunity. So have you.
I have had the opportunity.
In fact, some would say you've had more opportunity because you are alone with them in a prep room.
Oh, great. Now we're putting this on me.
He's never done anything wrong.
I swear that I have never, ever, ever done anything like this. Okay.
Oh, I believe you.
I may have bodies in my crawl space, but I don't. They're just there.
I'm just saying, if he is deviant enough to kill someone and hang out with their dead body,
or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Jizz on
Then
them.
are you telling me not once?
It's not that much of a leap.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but what comes out of a body of a corpse. There's the purge,
he may have been into it.
Everything.
It doesn't seem like he was.
He would have had to have been into it.
Oh. Oh God.
This just gets worse.
I know.
Well, it turns out that, I don't know, he would put them underneath the floorboards and then kind of forget about them for weeks at a time. And finally, it would seem that when they started turning ripe and basically not being beautiful anymore, he would just leave them in the floorboards. And they would sometimes be in there for 8 months at a time.
Ew.
Gross.
And then he'd have to find somebody else and they'd go under the floorboard. So, this is like, it got to be very crowded.
He must have been strong.
Yeah.
Or had a bad back, because throwing around dead people is not an easy feat by yourself.
I mean, he's also like getting really waifish, undernourished. Really, he liked him younger, and he liked him very.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
We're not talking like 200-pounders.
Okay.
So, but his problem became what to do with them.
He didn't do the whole like burning in the backyard or whatever and so on every time. Like he didn't get a body, do whatever he wanted, burned it, then got the next one. He would pile them up in his apartment for a while.
Sometimes, yeah, that seems to be what he eventually came to do, would to be, I've got to get rid of these folks and let's do it. But he would basically then dismember them and burn them out in the backyard.
Okay.
So his problem when he moved into the new place 3 years later was because he'd already been doing this for like 3 to 4 years before he moved into the new place. Okay. His last 3, his issues became, well, there's 3 people under my floorboards. What do I do now? Because he didn't have a garden. He didn't have a car. He basically had no way to dispose of them. So he got the bright idea.
And he's now in like an apartment complex with witnesses.
So he got it was technically like a flat. So like kind of a triplex.
Still definitely more public though.
Yeah. He decided he was gonna boil the flesh off the bodies. Once again, very Dahmer-esque. And then basically cut off the chunks of flesh and then flushed them down the toilet.
Ooh.
Eventually, that quite didn't work out for him, and
It quite didn't.
quite didn't, and he got caught.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what he was planning on doing with the bones, because you definitely am not going to be flushing the bones down the toilet, but he didn't quite get to that point. Yeah, so he got caught. I still don't understand how you can have a body for 8 months in your house and stand that. He says he would put deodorant sticks with them. Once again, I don't think that would have been any way effective.
Been enough.
I mean, maybe
if you got nose blind,
maybe if he got 100 of them and dumped them in there, maybe.
Yeah, I wonder if you just you go nose blind, you spend a certain amount of time with them, and you just that's just the norm.
But he had insect problems. He had how did it not get on his clothes? And then he would go out and say, "Hey, everybody," and everyone's like, "Stay away from me."
I wonder if he used an excessive amount of cologne.
Which in and of itself should be a repellent.
Which makes me curious about anyone who I come across now who uses an excessive amount of cologne.
Do they have a body under their floorboards?
Yeah, you never know.
That'd be a nice marketing ploy for a cologne company. Covers the scent of bodies.
Oh yeah. Oh, mad.
What are you hiding in your floorboards? They'll never know.
It could be one of those Febreze commercials.
Have you gone nose blind and then the room turns into like all dirty socks and just be like a bunch of dead bodies?
Oh my gosh. This guy, he was actually Scottish. He grew up in the north of Scotland, north of Aberdeen, right on the coast in this small little, I guess like you call it, fishing village. It's like kind of the shellfish capital of the UK. His parents, his dad was actually Norwegian and had come over during World War II as part of the resistance. And
my mom was Norwegian.
Who was?
My mom.
Was she?
Uh-huh.
Did she come over for the resistance?
No.
Your mom?
Similarities in there.
Your mom wasn't that cool as Dennis Nilsen's mom. But his mom was from an old family from this area who had been there for generations and generations. And so, yeah, they got together. And 3 years later, Dad's like, fuck this, I'm leaving. And so he left. So he was raised in a single family for a while. He basically goes ahead and blames his mom for being a cold and non-loving woman, which is funny because everyone else around him just says, oh, she was so affectionate and so loving and caring. And so I don't know whether he was just drawing at strings, but he would later say that the only characteristic that he and his mother shared was an affection for cock.
Oh.
Wow. But I mean, how did he know his mum was so into that?
Apparently, she had a reputation around the village.
Oh.
She was one of the village people.
She was the town bicycle.
Can she be a town tricycle?
Oh dear.
So he grew up and then she remarried and he kind of finally had that nuclear family. And he said that, he had okay words for his stepdad and didn't really seem to, he tried his best, but basically blamed his mom for everything. He had a very close relationship with his grandfather, and he blames his grandfather's death for basically fucking him up and basically merging this idea of death with love, and kind of intimates that the whole necrophilia thing was from love of his grandfather and seeing his grandfather's dead body.
Okay, yeah, because when I see my grandfather, like, I don't know.
You don't instantly say, I want a bone.
Yeah, my grandfather? Like, what?
Well, I'm not saying that he loved his grandfather. I'm just saying in his mind, he equated like love, like not like passion and sex, but love, like intimacy and love and caring and being taken care of. So
Yeah.
that seems to have been something he was looking for and didn't seem to find. He considered himself an outsider. I mean, he was a gay man that was growing up and finding himself in this small little town. It couldn't have been easy, but no other gay person in this town also turned to serial murder. So,
yeah. And I think it's interesting that if he had this animosity towards his mother and they didn't have anything in common and he felt she wasn't loving, I feel like a lot of serial killers who come from a history of having issues with their mother generally kill women or like prostitutes or
like their mother.
Yeah, yeah. But he obviously didn't, so.
Well, maybe he killed people like his father?
Yeah, the grandfather.
Or his grandfather.
Yeah. I don't know.
Unfortunately, all of his victims were young and twinkish and waifish and, you know, somewhere between 14 and 23 was kind of his age range.
How old was he when his grandpa died? Did you say that?
He was like 5 or 6.
Okay. I was gonna say maybe that's how old he was when his grandpa died.
Yeah, apparently, they didn't even tell him that he was dead. They just kind of did the whole, we're going to go to the wake in the living room. Oh, there's a body and he's not sleeping. They said he was sleeping and he's gone to a better place. You know, it was the 1940s where you lied to kids about death.
Yeah.
Look how well that turned out.
I think generally in England, like, viewing a dead body isn't really a thing. So embalming probably wasn't really a thing. So I wonder how bad the body looked, though, to disturb him. You know,
he doesn't talk about that.
It's interesting.
Well, he decided he did get the hell out of there. So after like a really I hate this place, he left at the age of 15 years old and joined the Royal Army. Oh. And he joined up and he became a cook.
Wait, at 15?
Yeah, my dad was a cook in the army.
Was he?
He was.
Wow.
Yeah, you could do that. Apparently at 15 in those days, you could join right up. So he would have joined in the late 50s, I think.
Yeah.
So, but he joined up for 11 years. He actually did go to war zones. He did see, he had to go on patrol when he was in Odin. I'm probably saying that completely different. So anyone from, who's in that part of the world, please forgive me. But apparently he claims he saw lots of dead bodies everywhere. So that could have been the place where he just was like, whatever, you know?
Yeah. Sparked a fascination, maybe.
Yeah. But he also developed quite a fantasy world where he started basically masturbating to himself, pretending he was dead. He got fellow soldiers he got a video camera, basically one of the first video cameras, and got them to dress up as, that they were dead and would film them and then promptly go and masturbate. He really, had this fantasy world. He imagined, he had this fantasy that I don't know where this even came from, but it started this whole necrophilia thing where he imagined he would jerk off to this fantasy where he was a German soldier during World War II and Nazi who had died, and he would be found dead in the woods by this hermit who would take him home and then bury him and then dig him up and start jerking off and having sex with him. And then his own penis would come alive and then come all over the old man.
Wow. Elaborate.
You know, It is a very elaborate fantasy.
Wow.
But you can, you can see that this was starting definitely not normal development for, I'm not going to yuck anybody's yum as far as fetishes, but that does not sound like a healthy,
way to go about it.
Anybody's yum.
Yum, yum.
I'm gonna steal that.
He was once again really, really weird in the fact that he would get really super drunk. That's one thing that he was really, he loved his alcohol, and he would get drunk and he would pretend that he fell asleep and hope that his mates would take advantage of him.
Oh no.
Ew.
So it's kind of sad in some ways that he was hoping for a sexual experience, but didn't know how to get it. It's, at this time period, it was very closeted. Apparently, the military was not very the place to find gay hookups. And he really didn't get that affection that he was looking for. And that kind of continued on. He eventually was actually thrown out of the army for his, he attacked one of his roommate and threatened him with his kitchen knives. So already you can tell he really is decompensating and really doesn't have very good coping mechanisms either.
No.
In some ways, that's very childish in the way that you react,
Mm-hmm.
He was apparently didn't have good hygiene. He kept a turtle in his room in the army that smelled terribly, and that was part of the reason he got into fights with his roommate.
Poor turtle.
He loved animals. He had a turtle. He got a mynah bird. When he eventually left the military, he moved to North London, and he got a dog and a cat. So he really was, those animals seemed to fulfill that need that he had.
So then that raises the question: did he have animals when the killings were all happening?
Yes, he did. Surely. He had a dog named Bleep.
Bleep?
Bleep. Bleep.
Oh, that's actually a cool name.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, love it.
It was this small sheepdog, kind of, you remember the Benji movies?
Uh-huh.
He kind of looks like a black Benji. Clearly there was affection there, and he could love the dog, and clearly he felt loved by the dog. Kind of a replacement for a person.
But the dog would have smelt stuff.
I'm sure the dog was, I don't know if the dog was happy there. But,
would dig at the floorboards,
Well,
I mean, if you train him not to, he probably wouldn't.
Oh, that's true.
I don't know.
Maybe the dog's sense of smell went out too.
It's just so bad.
Yeah, so basically there was another victim here too, and that was the dog, right?
Yeah.
It's actually sad that when he did go to prison, the dog was put in a kennel, and apparently the dog did not do well. He just went into a depression, and eventually he got sick and they had to put him down.
No.
Wow, you just expressed more emotion for the fucking dog than you did for any of his victims.
Because the puppy, I don't know. Puppy.
Poor Bleep. He did finally get a relationship, and it was a live-in relationship with a really young kid off the streets. And just once again, just to show how impulsive and really emotionally immature he was, he started meeting them. After a couple of days, he asked them to move in with him.
Oh, wow.
So he also seemed to have the soft spot for folks that were hard on out, people who needed help. He did, once he left the military, he became a policeman, believe it or not, for 9 months.
Oh. Yeah.
But then he decided he ran into some issues and then went into the civil service, where he worked at a job center helping jobless folks find jobs.
What a good man.
Was in some ways he really, he was trying to help people, and whether that was because he literally felt like he was
Knew what
part,
he was.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a bit of a narcissist, to be honest. And then in 1978 he started killing, and that happened about after his live-in boyfriend left. His live-in boyfriend his nickname was Twinkles.
Aw.
Yeah. So Twinkles left, and then he started his killing.
Okay.
So he was very very passionate. He loved to read Shakespeare. He was constantly arguing with people over politics, and if you got him started, his red socialist and union, he was a union man through and through. All those colors would come out. He was a chain smoker, always with a cigarette in his hand and a Coke and rums in the other. And alcoholism was, it was rampant in his life whenever he did his killing. So it seems that could have been a factor as well, that he had to literally black himself out to get to that point.
Did his victims kind of reflect his ex-boyfriend?
I know that
physically, maybe?
I think so, because that was his type, was young and hairless and, very needing, because I think he might have been picked up off a bar off the streets too.
So I wonder if there was any kind of resentment towards the ex-boyfriend, and that's it's not the mom, it's not the grandpa.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, he also, when he started his killing, he would get to points where he would get angry at them because they did something that was rude, or at one point he was before he killed Ockington, he got kind of peeved that he was listening to the music, and he's like, I want to listen to the music too. It's my music. And then he strangled him. And then there was another where a guy was just hogging his space, and he's like, it's about time you went, and then strangled him. So
wow,
this guy really was seems very unstable.
Yeah.
Just kind of looking for any excuse almost too.
Yeah, possibly a borderline personality. It's really hard to pin him down, but he really did not like the killing. He was like Dahmer. He's what's known as a product killer. There's process killers and product killers, and process killers are those that love the killing. Well, product killers, that's what they like, is not the killing part. That's merely to get to what they like at the end.
An ends to a mean kind of thing.
Exactly. Like Gacy, on the other hand, was completely a process killer. He loved the process, but then he had no use for them after the body. And getting rid of the body was very distasteful. So, and Dahmer, there's been a lot of connections made between Dahmer and Nilsen. The idea that they would kill their victims very quickly, get it out of the way. They both were very, very big alcoholics. They were they didn't have much in the way of friends. Jeffrey was shy and really just awkward. Nilsen was awkward, but also a bit of a prig, and very much haughty, and felt that the world should revolve around him. So there were some differences between them. Clearly, they were both necrophiles, and they were both very, very lonely individuals, which, I feel bad for them. I don't feel bad for what they did, and they definitely got what they deserved, but I can't help but think what would have happened if their needs had gotten fulfilled at a younger stage.
Yeah, they potentially wouldn't have turned into what they turned into.
Right.
Yeah.
Or would it have mattered at all? Would they have figured some other reason to do it?
Who knows? And maybe at some primal level, they did like to kill. They just never admitted it to himself.
Right.
Is he still alive?
Nilsen died.
Okay.
Nilsen died in 2018. He actually died from an aortic aneurysm, which led to a blood clot, and he supposedly died. According to the prison guards, he refused after treatment and died with strong stomach pains, like and covered in his own shit and filth. So
Nice.
yeah, so he died very painful death. But his time in prison, he did get convicted. He admitted to it, so that much. They were able to trace some of the bodies. They were able to actually identify 8 of them, which unfortunately there are still 6 that have not yet been able to be identified.
Wow.
The 6, a lot of it is because the way he disposed of them makes it so that there really is no way to track them, and also because he didn't identify with them. He didn't keep. He wasn't on a name basis, so he knows them simply by characteristics that they had. The victims, like we talked about, they ranged from 14 up until 23. He doesn't seem to have liked them like prepubescent. He wasn't. I wouldn't call him a pedophile. The 14-year-old he got, he thought the pedophile. He thought the pedophile.
He thought the pedophile.
He thought the pedophile was. He thought
was a pedophile.
He thought that the kid was 17,
but he still liked him hairless and kind of youthful.
Very androgynous is the way that
when
some
you
of the
say
authors
hairless.
hairless.
Exactly what do we mean? Because so you sent us a few pictures to kind of look at, and some of them or the one specific picture had pictures of his victims, and they're definitely not hairless. So like as far as their head hair,
I think that he liked the torsos hairless.
Body hair.
So body was hairless.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what he liked. I mean, I haven't seen any pictures of his victims without their shirts on, so I can't say, but he did seem to intimate that. He did get convicted on 6 counts of murder. He never got parole. He was always looked at as a very dangerous individual. He actually thought highly of himself that, I'm in prison. I confessed and I told them everything and that should be it. And he really didn't seem to have this understanding of what prison would be like. And so he was constantly railing on the guards about the treatment he got. He was constantly making lawsuits that the prisons were taking away his rights. They wouldn't let them wear his clothes. He seemed to think he was a political prisoner.
Yeah, prison's not supposed to be comfortable.
Yeah, it's not supposed to be fun.
No. Interesting, like when he was initially caught, it doesn't seem like he gave much pushback of, trying to hide his crimes. He said, like, I'll tell you everything, but let's go to the police station.
Yeah.
At some point in the car was like, I killed that many. So
yeah.
At some points, he said that he wanted to be caught. I think that's bullshit. A lot of serial killers say this, and it's like, no, because you would have gotten yourself caught. You would have turned yourself in.
Exactly. Yeah. Like you would have turned yourself in if you wanted to get caught.
Like Kemper. Yeah. Like Kemper literally turned himself in. But, Nilsen, I think it was just an ego thing. Like, he later said, there was no question that I refused to answer, going into minute detail. If anything, no other British murderer has ever or been so forthright in confronting his offending behavior than I have been.
Yeah, so he is narcissistic. He thinks
yeah. He's like, I can't be known as the number one in this range, but I'll be the most cooperative.
Yeah.
The most something.
Yeah.
God, he literally very prolific. He spent his time writing and writing and writing. He tried to publish a book for his autobiography for years and years. the prison system basically said, no, this is pornographic. This is too violent. We're not going to let you do that. So he basically was unable to publish his own memoirs. He opened up to several people. He loved writing to people. He loved analyzing himself. Once again, a narcissist, trying to figure out why. And, his stories seemed to change over the years too. Like, he went back at the end and said, 3 of them, I completely made up that I killed them. I made up that I ever did anything to them. And it's like, but he gave the details he gave in his confessions were so detailed. It's like, okay, there were no inconsistencies. So they're like, why did he go back? He would go back and accuse his grandfather of being a pedophile and having held his penis while he urinated, and claimed his grandfather may have spiked his tea, and when he fell asleep tried to put his finger in his anus. So he would go back, and some of this I think is what do you call recalled memories, that type thing, where there's highly suspicious. He would remember things that didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
Right.
But there was a book that came out in 1985 by Brian Masters, and that book was basically the book for the public. And there was, later on there would be a master's thesis or a doctorate thesis in 2000 by Matthew Melikos. And then in 2013, Russ Coffey basically took his autobiography and he basically took that, a lot of his writings, and published it. In 2021, few years after he died, finally his autobiography was published. So there actually is, you can actually read his autobiography, but it's from later in life when he's had the chance to, go back on things and change things, and basically working on, I think, his legacy.
So the one that they were like, it's pornographic, you can now get an updated, edited of his own editings version.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that just got published, so it's kind of interesting. It's called A History of a Drowning Boy.
Okay. Is there any evidence of him ever having actually drowned?
He claimed that at some point, as a boy, that he was swept out to sea and was about to drown, but another boy saved him, and he woke up with a sticky substance on him, and he was naked.
Okay, just because then I was like, wait, he drowns his victims, so I wonder if that had anything to do.
And maybe, and his grandfather died while at sea. He didn't drown, but he was at sea, so...
It just kind of sounds like he's full of shit.
Yeah.
How much shit he's full of.
What's true and what's not.
Exactly. And that's always been the problem with Nilsen, is in some ways it's possible that he himself doesn't know he lived in such a fantasy world. He doesn't know what is fantasy and what is real. Well,
I wonder how, while he was in prison before he died, how much they kind of worked on reforming him. Because if they're, he's still writing this pornographic type stuff,
recollection,
are they really, did they rehabilitate, or did they just kind of chuck him in a cell and leave him there?
Don't know. I don't really think there's much chance of rehabilitating these people.
Someone like that, no.
They're not going to be getting out anyways.
Yeah. But I feel like even, the comparison to Dahmer, like Dahmer went through therapy in jail, right? Or in prison. There's some interviews where he talks about going to a therapist and stuff.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the work himself. He definitely saw therapists that were appointed who did verify some of the stuff, but I think a lot of it was just times. He was a very introverted, very I live inside my head, so he spent his time trying to understand himself.
Yeah.
The victims that we know about, there was Stephen Holmes, the 14-year-old who was his first one, who was coming home from a concert. Once again, he was strangled and then drowned in a bucket of water. The second one, was Kenneth Ockington, and he was a tourist that he met and from Canada. He also, Kenneth Ockington was a son of a pretty high up politician in the Canadian government. So, the fact that he went missing was publicized, but it was never connected to him even until he actually came forward and talked about it.
That was a pretty high profile person for him to kind of out of the norm.
Mm-hmm. And that one may have been I don't want to call it accidental.
Like he didn't realize that he
seemed to have connected with him, but I don't think this was the second murder, so he could have been on autopilot. There was William David Sutherland, who was 26-year-old. So 26 was the eldest. He was a father of one, definitely straight. There was also Malcolm Barlow, who had epilepsy, and Malcolm showed up. He met him on the street and was having problems, and so Dennis brought him to the hospital, and Malcolm came back to thank him, and that's when he killed him.
No.
There was John Howlett. There was Graham Allen. And then there was his final one, Stephen Sinclair, a 20-year-old who was a heroin addict. And he had bandages on his arms and on his wrists. And when Nilsen actually went to wash him, he realized that he had actually had multiple suicide attempts because there were very deep, fresh cuts in his wrist.
Oh, that's sad.
We still don't know six of them to this day.
Wow.
There were also a bunch of folks, the survivors, that got away. So there were multiple people that got away, tried to report this to the police, and the police are like, oh, it sounds consensual to me.
What?
Oh my God, which is similar to Dahmer as well. Yeah.
It's gay stuff. Ooh.
Gay stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes, police officers can be real,
dickheads.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dickheads. So that is the story of Dennis Nilsen.
Wow.
Interesting man.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
What else to say?
Well, if you want to learn more about him, Russ Coffey's Dennis Nilsen, Conversations with Britain's Most Evil Serial Killer is a great book. Netflix, Memories of a Murderer, The Nilsen Tapes. There is numerous podcasts. Last Podcast on the Left did one on him, a multi-part series in 2018. And there also was a made-for-TV show called Deaths, a 3-part series starring David Tennant.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think David Tennant played him in something.
And if you ever see them together, see pictures of them side by side, David Tennant nailed it. He looks like him. Oh my gosh, it's actually pretty scary.
Wow.
Did he have a Scottish accent then?
He has a Scottish accent, but it's not.
David Tennant does, but did Nilsen?
Yeah, he does. He
I know he was Scottish, but
it's not a really thick Scottish accent you can't even understand like this. It's not one of those. It's a very rolling Scottish accent, like a very rolling one. Even though you think being from way up north by Aberdeen, you think it would be a very hickish accent. It's actually one that you can. It's actually fairly understandable. He's very articulate. Articulate.
The irony.
Yeah, the irony of that sentence.
I, on the other hand, am not very articulate.
Well, I wonder if he was always articulate, or if his accent was sort of played down because, you know, we're traveling so much with the, I can't remember what you said it was, the army?
Yep.
Which branch of the military, but very interesting man.
Piece of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not going to get into my book as one of the most memorable people that on the planet, but
Right.
he should be.
He doesn't deserve to really be remembered, but unfortunately, I mean, we're talking about him, so obviously we find him interesting, and people find serial killers intriguing. So yeah.
Well, I am so happy that you could join us today.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, it's been fun. I could talk about this all day long. Yeah, I was going to say it, but probably bore everyone. But
well, thank you all again for listening. We can be found on Twitter. We've got email. We can be found on iTunes and Spotify and Facebook. So look us up.
Instagram.
Yep, Instagram. Give us reviews. We love them. And yeah.
Tell us what you think. We want to know what you think.
We do. We are so desperate to hear what you think. All right. Well, thanks again for coming along on this journey, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.